Okay, so last video was a bit of a rant about the boomers, and I think this video is gonna be kind of part two. Let's talk a bit about what will happen once the boomers are actually gone. So, like 10 to 20 years from now, probably. And I'm gonna assume that really nothing that the boomers fucked up is gonna get substantially fixed. So pretty much all of the problems they created for us are gonna be left for us to solve once they're gone. And yeah, to be honest, the current system is mostly being upheld by the boomers for the boomers. Like they are clinging on to power in politics and they are voting to continue as it is because they're still profiting of the way things are right now. But I think once they're gone, there's going to be a lot of change, probably pretty quickly. And yeah, I think once the boomers are gone, it's gonna get immediately quite a bit worse before it can get better in the more distant future. I kind of want to focus on three areas. The first one is economics, because I hear a lot of people talking about how they're gonna inherit a lot of money from the boomers, or like the boomers are gonna have to give away their money to their millennial children when they finally croak. I think people are being a bit too optimistic. Like, first, what you need to think about is being elderly is pretty expensive. Like elder care is not cheap. Like these retirement communities or just taking care of old and sick people in the last years of their life, that costs a lot of money. So I think a lot of middle class boomers are gonna use up most of their money for like elder care or treatment, or you know how they are, probably maybe on cruises if there's anything left. And I think a lot of middle class millennials won't really inherit anything pretty much from their boomer parents. And of course, poor people, there's no money there, they're not gonna inherit anything. The only people that are really going to inherit a lot are people that are already from rich families. The other money that goes into elder care or treatment, that basically gets siphoned off by the usual suspects like huge corporations and financial industry. So we're gonna see even more of a transfer from the poor to the rich, unfortunately. And yeah, this will obviously lead to further erosion of the middle class. The middle class is gonna shrink even more, and you're gonna end up with a lot of inequality. You're basically gonna probably have like 20% of the population that is really quite wealthy, and the other 80% that has barely anything, or like maybe 60% poor, 20% rich, and like 20% struggling middle class. We'll come back to the effects of this economic shift, but let's quickly talk about demographics. Because in a lot of Western countries, obviously there has been heavy immigration for the last 60 years. And certainly in the United States, once the boomers are gone, white people are suddenly going to be a minority. Like already, if you look at Western countries, you can see that white people are often quite a substantial amount of the population. In a lot of countries, they're like a very clear majority of like 90% or something. But you have to look at the age demographics. Like a lot of the big white cohort is old and they are going to be gone soon. And in a very short amount of time, suddenly white people are going to be a way smaller proportion of the population. I think in the US it's pretty much already guaranteed that white people are going to be a minority soon. But that obviously doesn't mean that there is going to be another group that is a majority. You're just going to be living in a society that is made up of different minorities, and white people are probably going to be the most sizable minority and probably one of the most powerful and influential. And yeah, one thing the disappearance of the boomers is not gonna fix is the age imbalance in the population pyramid. Like you're gonna have a big generation of old people dying, and they're gonna be replaced by a smaller generation of old people, the Gen X's. But with the way birth rates have been, the young generation that is gonna follow is also gonna be very small. So we're gonna be stuck with the cooked demographics for a big while, probably. Let's move on to the political consequences. Like this one is funny. You might have already noticed. If you follow cringe online politics at all, you might have realized that Nick Fuentes has recently been doing the rounds. And if you haven't watched his Piers Morgan interview, I definitely would recommend. It's kind of hilarious. But you could really see when Piers Morgan was trying to like guilt trip him with like the Holocaust, and he like brought a video on of this like Jewish guy talking about his family, and Nick Fuentes just mocked it, and all the commenters as well just didn't care at all and just ruthlessly mocked the guy. I think what we're seeing here is the post-war consensus starting to break down, but I think it's not. I think it's not gonna fully disappear until the boomers are gone. Like the boomers are kind of keeping the system going for as long as they're alive, and once they're gone, it's gonna be like a free for all. But yeah, you can kind of tell how politics in the last 60 years has basically been about being as far removed as possible from like World War II Germany. And you know the Austrian painter is kind of displayed as the ultimate evil. Like if you say "Hail Satan," no one bats an eye. But if you throw up a Roman salute, everyone loses their minds. And I think this is kind of normal in a historical context. Like after Napoleon was defeated, obviously everyone was scared of another Napoleon appearing, and they did everything they could to prevent that. And that is pretty much what we've been seeing in the last decades with like the Austrian painter, the mustache man. Everyone is scared that his ideology is gonna come back, and basically we have to be as liberal as possible to prevent that, pretty much. But yeah, political zeitgeist can't be around forever, and I think this one is gonna follow the boomers into their grave. Yeah, my prediction is that the boomer truth regime, as Academic Agent calls it, the post-war consensus, that is gonna end once the boomers are gone. Now we have this scenario with a lot of wealth inequality and completely cooked economics, a very diverse society with a lot of racial tensions, and we're probably gonna have a political free fall since the post-war consensus and like this global liberalism, liberal democracy is gonna be breaking down. Now, the real question, I guess, is what is gonna rise from the ashes. I think liberalism can't really hold on if there's not a big middle class. And the way it looks like now, the middle class is getting completely demolished. All of these like luxury beliefs, like waving the rainbow flag, you can do that if you're well off. But if you're struggling to survive, most people are not gonna care about like trans rights or whatever. So liberalism as an ideology, unless it can somehow solve wealth inequality and like racial tensions, I think it's over. It's gonna disappear for a long period of time. And yeah, again, if we look at the economic situation and inequality, this is like a prime breeding ground for like hard left ideologies like communism, socialism, that kind of stuff. We're gonna see an ascendant hard old left, not the liberal pride flag waving left of the last few decades. We're gonna see a return of like the more classical left wing politics like Marxism, communism, that stuff. At the same time, we're gonna be having a lot of racial tensions because, well, I talked about the demographics, and most Western countries have the additional problem that they're not only very racially diverse, they're also going to be very culturally diverse. Like if you look at racially diverse countries, for example, in South America, they usually have one strong dominant culture. Like they all speak the same language and roughly believe in the same religion. For example, in Brazil, although it's like a mix between like white Europeans and indigenous people and the descendants of black slaves, like racially they mixed, but culturally the Portuguese have always been dominant and pretty much assimilated the other racial groups into their cultural group. I think in the West, because of the open society and because of liberalism, there was not really an attempt made to integrate and assimilate foreigners too much. So you're gonna have these groups that are obviously like ethnically different, but also culturally very different, and they're probably gonna struggle to coexist peacefully. And if you add to that the like polite rules of liberalism disappearing, you're gonna be in a bit of an ethnic free for all. There's gonna be a lot of tribalization. People are gonna self segregate. There's gonna be more of those fun racial riots that the United States has every couple of years. Now, if you think about the economic situation, as people get poorer, there's going to be deindustrialization, people can't get jobs. And I think this is going to lead to a lot of people basically kind of going off the grid. And they're going to be moving away from the cities into the countryside, getting more into kind of subsistence living. we're basically gonna see a bit of a new peasant class forming. And again, this will also happen in conjunction with cultural and racial self-segregation. So that's definitely a big risk factor. Just people dispersing and building their own communities away from the authority of the state and the government, and undermining the authority of the government. You're gonna have a mass of poor people, basically peasants, that are very receptive to like hard left economic policies, but also to very extreme right-wing social policies. Because in times of chaos, people always look for order, and they look for like a strong hand that can provide that. So I would not be surprised if we are seeing some sort of like third positionist movement that is very economically leftist but very socially right-wing. And this is probably going to be the end game for the next few decades. Either you're going to get some authoritarian movement and a strongman that holds the countries together with sheer force and violence, or you're gonna see a breakdown of government authority and basically balkanization and breakup into small, semi-independent political areas. Yeah, to be honest, I think this is where the United States and Europe are probably gonna diverge. I think the United States, with its big military and its very inclusive ideology, has more of a chance to like unite everyone through sheer force. Whereas Europe, I can see a lot of countries possibly breaking apart, kind of like Yugoslavia. You're gonna have like these certain areas. You're gonna have certain areas that are probably very heavily dominated by Muslims, and other areas where the indigenous population is still the dominant force. And most European countries don't really have a very strong military, so you could easily see government authority breaking down and individual communities just deciding to carve up the space for themselves. But yeah, this one was highly speculative. I'm kind of going full schizo on you guys, so let me know in the comments if you think I'm completely insane or if I actually cooked with this one. So yeah, that's it. Until next time, and remember, all of this could have been prevented if you had just cleaned your room.